Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I would like to talk about the big bad wolf this week. I'm passionate about this one because of the straight chokehold it had on me and the freedom I now know. I was also adamant that I wasn't going to speak on this until I had ample time to talk to you about your identity, to allow you to hear how you're loved before the big bad wolf enters the picture. Sin. If you look it up, you're going to find the definition to miss the mark. And even the first layer of the Greek word for sin, which is hamartia, if you stop at that first level, you'll get to miss the mark. For us to stop at that surface level is the reason I don't believe we know what we're talking about when we bring up the topic or talk about sin itself. The two root words for hamartia mean without or negative particle in part or form. The word means to be without form, to forget how you were formed, to not be a part of. And this may seem elementary to some, but the story I got when I was writing this and was thinking about it was the story of the three little pigs. I'll do a quick recap for you. First little pig built his house out of straw. Took him one day. He said, "Good enough. I have a house. I would like to go play." Second pig spent 3 days building his house, and he built it out of wood. He looked at it and said, "Looks safe. Good to go." Third pig spent a week building his home out of rock and brick. Along comes the big bad wolf, gets to the first house, blows it down. Goes to the second house, blows it down. Gets to the third house, and we know it, right? Puffed and he puffed. Had no effect on the third house. Had no effect on the house built out of rock and brick. Doesn't take much to figure out where I'm headed here, I would guess. The wolf is only a threat if your foundation isn't strong. The wolf is only a threat if he can wreck your house. What are we building our houses out of to keep the wolf out? Straw and wood in the form of willpower and self-effort? Or rock and brick in the form of Jesus? Bill Vanderbush has a saying, and he says, "What has our attention has our affection," and it is the realest statement out there. When I got tired of the consequences of the symptoms, I tried to use willpower and self-effort to quit. I was so focused on the things I wanted to stop doing or the pieces I didn't like, I inadvertently was giving it more power. I was walking straight into that chokehold. This is part of the reason I waited so long to talk about this topic, and the very reason I don't talk about it very often in my personal life. It's not because I have any shame or guilt or embarrassment related around it anymore, because I don't. I have absolute freedom from it. It's because I'm no longer willing to give something more power than it has. Matthew 6:22, "Your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light." I've been asked a few times, "Don, how?" Or, "Don, is fill in the blank. Is this a sin?" And what I found is when I'm focused on Jesus, when I know who I was created to be, the things I used to struggle with, the things I used to want to stop, become a non-issue. They become irrelevant because it's now out of character for me to do those things once I know how I was created and who I am. Even in this message, I'm choosing to bring the scripture about light instead of the scripture about sin. One deserves focus and attention, and one does not. I got really focused on fixing my eyes on Jesus, on figuring out how I was created and who I was created to be, and my body was filled with light. Going back to the very beginning, Eve's sin was not because she ate a piece of fruit. Sin was coming into agreement with the lie and coming out of agreement with her form. Coming out of agreement for her original design. It's a really silly idea for me to think Yahweh is going to deal with me differently on the other side of this life about my sin than he does right now. It doesn't make any sense to me that he would allow me to spiral out of control here without attempting correction in the very life he gave me through Jesus, just to drop the hammer on me on the other side. When I hear someone say, God's going to deal with you, God's going to deal with your sin, there's a judgment day coming, be ready, I wholeheartedly believe it looks the same as it does now. It doesn't make any sense to me that it's any different. What it looks like now, when I need correction, it looks a lot like, honey, that's not who you are. Let me show you who you are. Here, honey, let me show you how you were created, what your original purpose and intent was, and let's get back there. On the other side of this thing, Judgment Day, whatever you call it, right? I think it looks the same. And it's, honey, that wasn't who you were created to be. And that thing, sin, didn't make you worthless. It made me even more adamant about your worth. See that thing? That sin? It didn't make me want to cancel you out. It made me want to show you my love so much more, in hopes that you would be aware of it, so that you would recognize it, and that you would come back to me. That just makes sense to me. I also think we confuse consequences for our lifestyles and our actions with the punishment of God. I think we confuse the two. I got a DUI as a consequence of not being able to stop drinking and driving, not as a punishment from God. I've lost friends and relationships as a consequence of my actions and my lifestyle, not as a punishment from God. I've lost time, money, dignity, respect because of consequences of my actions and lifestyle, not as punishment from God. Missing the mark is a symptom of forgetting how you were formed. Missing the mark is a symptom of coming out of agreement with who Yahweh says you are. I missed the mark when it came to relationships because I was aimed at the wrong thing. I was aiming at it, and I was aiming at what I thought was love, intimacy, affection, safety. I missed the mark because I didn't know what the original target was. I missed the mark with my temper and anger because I was aiming at being proven right and being justified. I missed the mark because I didn't know what the original target was. I missed the mark with being greedy because I didn't understand the original target of abundant life and what that meant. I was aiming at the wrong thing. I could go on. You get the idea. Our issues are not our issues. They're a symptom of, first, not knowing what we're talking about, in my opinion, and second, not knowing what the target really is. Not knowing who we really are. Everyone is going to miss the mark when they don't know what they're aiming for. And pressuring somebody into hitting the mark before they understand that and then shaming them for missing the mark is the problem. Change the definition of sin in your life and see the shift. Understand you're not a piece of trash you can't help but continue to mess up. You're out of alignment. You're out of form from the original design. Focus less on the actions and consequences. Focus more on finding out what that original design was. When you know that, you change your aim. Don't confuse consequences with punishment. Don't give something more power than it actually has. Do find out what Yahweh says about you and come into total agreement with that. Do build your house with the foundation that is unbothered by the big bad wolf. You're perfectly loved. I'll see you next week.